and all those macro moves and the week ahead. Pete McGuire from XM joining us. Pete, before we look ahead, let's have a quick step back, and we were calling it the FOMO 50 Club last week. Bank of Canada and RBNZ. What was expected? What wasn't?
Well, I think that they did what they had to do, Annette, and good morning. And here we are moving on, and the impact it had to commodity prices, to currencies and so on. You've still got that Kiwi sitting at about 67.5, the Canadian dollars at 126 handle. So they moved a little bit, but where we inhale the news of what they've done, what impact it's going to have to the big brother banks, US, of course, and what happens to Australia and other parts of, Eurozone.
Well, I mean, as we know, all we've gotten from the RBA and the Fed is a bit of talk, but not much in the way of deeds. Will you be looking for the RBA minutes at all today, Pete?
I'll have a look at them, Annette. I mean, the Aussies sitting, it's been an incredible trade. 73 to 77, I think, is where it's going to, be in that tight band. Well, not necessarily tight, but it's across that 4-cent move, and it's sitting at that 73 and a bit at the moment, 73 and a half. So I'll have a look at the minutes, take on board what their views are. All I know is the price of tomatoes have gone from $8 to $11, and if anyone tells me that the inflation rate's at 2 or 3 or 4%, then obviously they don't shop where I shop. So there's the first part. The second part is how quickly they roll out. Probably after the election, they'll roll out, a number of rate rises in Australia and what impact it's going to have to the real estate market and to the overall economy with very little wage growth. It's going to be an interesting 22, Annette.
Yeah, you're not wrong there. Let's jump back across the ditch. And as you said, the RBNZ did 50. Their cash rate is now 1.5%. I mean, that's pretty lofty these days. But their house price inflation is collapsing. Are they risking a harder landing? And do you think our RBA is just keeping a beady eye on what's going on over there?
Yeah, well, no doubt they'll be looking at it closely. I talk to realtors across the ditch, and I talk to the ones that here, and they're very conscious as far as what's happening. It's fully maxed out as far as price. It was exhausted to the upside, and now you're seeing it hemorrhage a bit. So it's not unusual when you start raising rates, and that economic cycle probably is getting to a point of, where does it find its floor? Are we going to see a similar scenario play out here? No one really knows yet, but it wouldn't surprise me. So these are all the concerns that investors are going to face. Secondly, what confidence level that shares across to the wallet and the purse in the consumer's own home. So yeah, I think it's going to be quite an interesting ride ahead, Annette.
Well, speaking of consumer, that GDP report out of China yesterday, retail sales absolutely collapsed. Could we be looking at a prime rate cut this week?
You may well do. I mean, it's when you're thinking the GDP was 4.8, and as you mentioned, it was up from, analyst expectation 4.4. So that was a very healthy number. Your retail sales, you got 379 million, my understanding is, in lockdown and varying degrees of it. And is that number going to grow? So are you going to sit, with 500 million people in lockdown? And well, that greatly impacts retail sales. And how's this next month or 2 months going to look? So, whatever China has to do, it'll do, and hands will be on the wheel, and it'll stimulate to get a result. And, I don't think it'll miss the opportunity of, keeping the wheels turning.
Yeah, a couple of bips might be on the card, something we'll keep an eye on. Let's move way to the other side of the world. Now, the ECB, of course, didn't join the FOMO 50 Club. Did we get any nuggets there? And are we still keeping an eye on that French election?
Well, yes, we are, because you've got the second round. I think that's about the 24th or 25th. So I think it's this weekend. So Macron versus Le Pen. You've got a euro sitting, and I'll tell you what, it's tanking. You're now under 108. You're at a 107.70. So that really has shown some structural weakness. You've got a US dollar index, which is weighed as 61% euro. So that's sitting just shy of 101, Annette. So we're up from the 94s, the 95s. We've cracked 100, and now we're just ready to breach 101. So, I think the overall consensus out of Eurozone, I'm noticing that they're really gauging up as far as tourism for the summer period in Europe, and it's just opening its floodgates. Everyone's welcome, and come over and spend some money on a Greek island or travel across France. So they're going to welcome those dollars as far as tourism. and try and get the economy back on track. But a lot of analysts are saying you're going to get a third quarter recession. So who knows? I'm just sitting here waiting to see what happens as far as Macron and Le Pen, and then where that euro really finds a floor, maybe a 105 handle.
Is there a sort of a risk there that we get Lurch and anti-euro talk? I mean, as you say, it looks like the euro is certainly ready to sink from here.
Well, yeah, you'd have to put your mind back that far. It was at 121, so near 107. I'm not putting it out there, Annette, but are we looking at parity? I mean, if you get that US dollar, you got James Bullard saying that he's not pushing for it. The St. Louis Fed chair, he's saying that you could see, or president, I should say, a 75 basis point hit like Alan Greenspan did in 94. So if they hit the market that way, then that's really going to boost that US dollar. It's going to, I think, put a tailspin on the euro. And they're the big themes that I think traders have got to be conscious of over the next matter of weeks. How aggressive is the Fed going to be on the 3rd and 4th of May, and what the Eurozone's going to do as far as keeping their hopefully some form of wind in their sails.
Yeah, it's a tough one, isn't it, Pete? Not that long ago, it was a shock horror that Bullard was talking about 50. Now 50 is not good enough. But of course, we've had a little bit of US earnings dropping. Are you getting any nuggets over there? Have we seen the best of the earnings season already?
I think you have. I mean, if you looked at the US market overnight, it was soft. It didn't. The three of the indices were just in the negative by a whisker. So there was no startling news there. I know it's Easter, and I'm conscious of that, but we saw, if you looked at Asian equities yesterday, they were a very, very sorry state of affairs. India was down 2%. Everything was tanked to the downside. So it's good to see if we've got some lift off here today. But where you're looking as far as earnings, I'm not expecting surprises. We're looking at, I want to keep an eye on the S&P, where the Dow trades, where the NASDAQ moves, and what opportunities present themselves, Annette, from a trading perspective.